Friends, welcome back to our video lectures on power amplifiers. In the last video lecture we discussed about crossover distortion. In this lecture we will try to cover how to eliminate this crossover distortion that is going to present because of the transistor cut-in voltages. Now, we have already come across in the concept of crossover distortion. There will be a cut-in voltage because of the transistors. As a result, there will be a crossover, means if the signal is changing from positive to negative and negative to positive half cycle, due to the requirement of the cut-in voltage, there will be a distortion in the sinusoidal signal. That's what we normally call it as crossover distortion. This the reason is the signal is crossing from positive to negative and negative to positive, and at that particular point we have a distortion. That's why we normally call it as crossover distortion. And to avoid this crossover distortion, you need to provide an external cut-in voltage as a compensation towards the transistors. That's what we try to do here, and we have already discussed in class B power amplifier. The operating point is chosen on the x-axis, exactly on the x-axis. In order to compensate the cut-in voltages of the transistors, you are providing an external voltage. Because of this external voltage, there will be a shift in the operating point. Now the operating point slightly moves towards the active region. In this case, it is going to be allowing more than half cycle but less than full cycle. We know the basic property in class A. It allows a full cycle. In case of a class B, it allows only half cycle. If the operating point is moved from x-axis towards the active region, it is going to be allowing more than half cycle but it is less than full cycle. That's why we call that amplifier as class AB. Now in this class AB power amplifiers, again we will discuss about two types. One is a push-pull class AB amplifier, and second one is complementary symmetry class AB amplifier. Again these two amplifiers are named just similar to that of our class B. Reason in the class B, you need to avoid the crossover distortion in class B. As a result, that can be compensated with the help of external bias voltage. Now let us see the first one, the push-pull class AB amplifier. Only the modification to this is additionally you are adding a diode along with a resistor. This resistor will be ensuring not to damage this diode. Whenever the diode is under the forward biased condition, you try to apply that VCC. Now this is forward biased and it will be treated as a plus and it is a minus. Whenever it is in the forward biased condition, we can replace this diode with a DC voltage of 0.7. That 0.7 will be applied to this, and this 0.7 will be applied either to Q1 or to Q2, not for both the transistors at a time because it is a center taper transformer. And the remaining principle remains the same. For positive half cycle, transistor Q1 is going to operate. For the negative half cycle, Q2 is going to operate. By applying external biasing, 0.7 volts is already added to this. Means you try to apply a positive half cycle at a voltage, let us say the input voltage for the sinusoidal is 0. Immediately the transistor will be gets on and it will be allowing any sort of a distortion in the input side. You are going to be getting the complete positive half cycle. Whenever it is for a negative half cycle, this transistor will become on. Reason, you are already providing the biasing voltage to the transistor Q2. As a result, now this transistor will remain on and we don't have any crossover distortion that is only purely because of applying this the biasing voltage by using a external diode. Whenever you try to apply the supply, this diode will be under forward biased condition. It will be acting like a DC source. This is what is exactly meant by this push-pull class AB amplifier. Because of adding this additional 0.7, see this. In case of a class A, here where we are choosing the operating point exactly in the middle. In case of a class B, you are choosing the operating point on the x-axis. By applying external voltage or by providing that biasing voltage across the transistor, now the operating point is going to be shifted towards this. That is why the operating point gets shifted up, and the transistor will be in the let us say avoiding the crossover distortion. Now come to the second one, complementary symmetry class AB amplifier. Now here we are using a voltage divider method, and ensure that whatever the voltage you are trying to apply, the voltage drop across this R2 will be 1.4 in such a way that the voltage you are going to be getting at this point at the base of the transistor Q1, which is equal to 0.7, and the voltage at transistor Q2, that is at the base of the transistor Q2, is also 0.7. This 0.7 and this 0.7 is 1.4. That's why you need to ensure that the voltage drop across the resistor R2 is 1.4 in order to provide 0.7 volts to transistor Q1 and 0.7 volts for transistor Q2. This is how it is always ensuring to avoid the crossover distortion in the circuitry. This is another one called complementary symmetry class AB amplifier. Here even we can also able to replace this resistive network. We normally call it as a potential divider or a voltage divider method. We can also use, or you can also construct the voltage divider circuit with the help of a diode. So let us see how to draw the circuit. Now this is what is a basic diagram. This is a 0.7 and this is a 0.7, and the total voltage here which is equal to 1.4 volts, which is equal to 1.4 volts. See this is NPN. You are providing a positive voltage to this, which is a plus 0.7. This is minus, it is a PNP. You are trying to provide another 0.7 volts for this transistor T2. Again, there is no difference between the previous circuit and this circuit. It will be like two voltage sources which are in series, 0.7 and 0.7. Whenever they are in forward bias, the total voltage is equal to 1.4 volts. This is how you can also be able to compensate this. But in this case, you try to need two power supplies. Here also you try to need two power supplies. We have already gone through this method, complementary symmetry. Because of using two transistors, complementary transistors, one is an NPN, another one is a PNP transistor, there is a requirement of two supplies. One is a plus VCC, another one is a minus VCC. Now, that is the concept about basically what is meant by class AB. This class AB has been derived in order to avoid the crossover distortion. That's why this class AB has come into picture. Now, move on to our next concept called heatsink. What is the exact purpose of a heatsink for the power transistors? Let me take a general example, what we are trying to see regularly in our laboratory. We have already seen the regulated power supply in our laboratory. You try to identify at the back side of regulated power supply, we have a plastic case. And from that plastic case, you can identify your transistors, the power transistors which has been coming out. This is what is basically the heatsink that has been attached with the power transistors. Whenever the power dissipation is going to be increasing in the transistors, if you are not using any heatsink, power dissipation is increasing, temperature in the circuit also increases. As a result, you are not doing any compensation technique for the excess power dissipation. The circuit is going to damage. To avoid this damage of the circuit, we need to go for a heat sink which is used to avoid the circuitry. We know the basic formula which we have already seen in the power amplifiers. The collector power dissipation, we know the formula PD, which is equal to VCE into IC. Let Tj, J is the junction, Tj is the junction temperature due to the power dissipation. If there is a power dissipation, what is the amount of a temperature that is going to be existing at the junction of the transistor? Let us say the power transistor. That's what we normally call it as a Tj, and its maximum value will always be provided by the manufacturer. Reason, what is the maximum temperature withstanding capability of the transistor based on the type of a doping. This is one criteria, and a major criteria, or you can say the important criteria, is its basic construction, its width, its length, what type of material you are using. All these plays a vital role in order to decide what is the maximum value of the temperature where the power transistor can be able to withstand, and it has been usually provided by the manufacturer, the maximum value. Now usually these transistors are going to be operating minimum of minus 65 degrees centigrade, and we have already quoted the maximum junction temperature will be provided by the manufacturer, minus 65 degrees centigrade up to the temperature that has been provided by the manufacturer. Usually you take any transistor or any diodes, whatever the electronic components it is, the manufacturers are going to provide the complete data sheet regarding with the component. Now whatever the heat sink you are going to be using, its major purpose is to uniformly distribute whatever the heat that has been generated because of the power dissipation. Basically it is used to avoid the damage of the power transistors. This is what is the diagram we can identify at the back side of a regulated power supply, which is the most popular one. This is the power transistor. Whenever this power transistor is dissipating the power, and the power dissipation which is in the form of a heat, that heat will be distributed throughout this heat sink. Uniformly the heat will be distributed. As a result, you are trying to avoiding the damage of the power transistor. This is what is the basic structure, and which is the most popular structure used for heat sink. We will also go through what are the other forms of heat sinks which are used in the electronic circuits. Why we are going for these heat sinks? What are the basic advantages we have? We have already quoted the temperature that has been generated in the power transistor will be decreased or reduced with the help of the heat sink. And the second one, whenever you are trying to reduce the amount of a temperature, its a power handling capability can be able to reach to the maximum, because if there is unnecessary power wastage or the power dissipation taking place in the power transistor, it cannot go up to the what you call the manufacturer's default values. You want to do it, you need to provide the casing, what we normally call it as heat sink. You try to provide the heat sink, then there is always the possibility where the power transistor is going to reach its maximum values, rated maximum values, or you simply say rated values. These are the various types of a heat sinks. This is what is the most popularly used heat sink, which is a rectangular one, and other forms are also available, but these are not that much popularly used when compared with this rectangular heat sink. We have a cylindrical and we have a semicircular. Now we will go through what is the thermal analogy. Heat is always going to flow whenever we have a temperature variation. If there is no temperature variation between 2 points, heat is not going to flow. This is what we need to understand. If there is you take two different points, let us take a point A and a point B. At a point A we have a temperature T1, at a point B we have a temperature T2. Then these two temperatures are different, then only heat is going to flow. If both at point A and point B the temperatures are same, there is no point of heat flow between the 2 points. Now let us see what we normally call it as a thermal resistance, theta, which is equal to T2 minus T1 divided by PD, and the units are degree centigrade per watts. Degree centigrade per watts, which we have already come across this concept in electronic devices and circuits. Now let us see what are the various parameters we are trying to quote with respect to this heat sink. One is the junction temperature, the temperature which is going to be generated in the transistor. We normally represent it as a Tg, and it depends upon its functionality. Tc is the case temperature. Whatever the case you are trying to connect to the transistor, and we normally call it as a case temperature, outside temperature of the transistor. Ambient is the surrounding. This is with respect to the case of the transistor. This is the surrounding area of the transistor outside. We normally call it as an ambient temperature. Now you try to identify, we have a transistor junction which is inside of the transistor. At outside layer we can call that for the transistor which is called as a case. Then the transistor is there in a normal environment, whatever the environment you try to take, that we normally call it as an ambient temperature. Now let us say Tja. This is the total thermal theta, let us say theta Ja. This is the total thermal resistance which is going to be available from junction to the outside ambient. Second one, theta Jc. Theta Jc. Theta Jc is the transistor thermal resistance which is in between, the resistance exists in between the junction and the case. And third one we can also represent, which is a theta Cs. This is the insulator thermal resistance which is a case to heat sink, because we have connected this power transistor to the heat sink. Now between my insulator and the heat sink, whatever we try to call it as theta Cs. Theta Sa, which is a heat sink thermal resistance, heat sink to ambient, heat sink to the ambient. These are all the various thermal resistance that is going to be available in the basic heat sink circuitry. Now this is what is the basic working. Whenever you try to use the power transistor, whatever the power dissipation that is going to be taking place, whatever the power dissipation, this is what is the outside power transistor. Whatever the heat that is going to be dissipating here, whatever the heat that is generated otherwise, this is the what is the heat flow. This is completely, this is a halo, all these are all halo, which is a case. You normally call it as a heat sink. This power transistor can be able to dissipate the heat in all the directions. This is what is all the directions. The heat will be uniformly distributed. Now this is what is the ambience, the outside. This is what is the ambience we have. Ambience we normally call it as a, this is ambience, this is ambience, this is ambience. This entire thing is an ambience. Surrounding, we normally call it as a surrounding, where air flows, and this air can be able to cool it down. It can be able to cool it down. This is what is the basic phenomenon we are using to avoid the amount of heat that is generated in the power transistor with the help of the heat sink. You don't this, the power transistor is going to be heated up and reached to the maximum value. Thereafter it will simply gets damaged. To avoid this, to dissipate the heat, we are trying to use this heat sink in the basic circuit for the power transistors. The same diagram we can represent with respect to our thermal resistance and the temperatures. Taking that same inside from the transistor case, this is what heat sink, and this is what the surrounding ambient. Theta J, theta C, theta S, theta A. Theta Jc, thermal resistance between junction and case. Theta Cs, thermal resistance between case and sink. Heat sinks short form we call it as a sink. Theta Sa, thermal resistance between sink and ambient. this we are trying to consider at absolute 0. Now let us move on to this. From the electrical analogous circuit, we can represent theta Ja. See from this, theta, this is junction, this is ambient, theta Ja, which is equal to theta Jc plus theta Cs plus theta Sa. That's what we have written. Theta Ja is equal to theta Jc plus theta Cs plus theta Sa. And we know the basic formula for theta. Theta is equal to T2 minus T1 by Pd. And we can write a theta Ja is equal to Tj minus Ta divided by Pd. The 2 points we are taking. The first point is the junction and the second point is the ambient. This one what we have quoted in the earlier slide. From this diagram we can rewrite the formula for Tj, which is equal to theta Ja into Pd plus Ta. Now the total power handling capacity Pd of the device can be written as, from this we can rewrite the formula as, straight away we can write from this, Tj minus Ta divided by theta Ja. We know the formula for theta Ja, which is equal to theta Jc plus theta Cs plus theta Sa. Now see this. Manufacturers is going to be representing the total thermal resistance from case to air, theta Ca, which is equal to theta Cs plus theta Sa, which is also equal to, from the basic formula we can also write it as theta Ja minus theta Jc. And we know the power dissipation for the transistor Pd is equal to Vce into Ic. We can calculate its thermal resistance. Basically we need to understand what is the main purpose of this heat sink is to avoid the damage of the power transistor whenever there will be a power dissipation. If the power dissipation takes place, this power dissipation which is in the form of a heat, and this heat will be uniformly distributed with the help of a heat sink. As a result, the temperature will be reduces and avoiding the damage of the power transistor. This is what is the basic concept of heat sink. In the next class we will go through the concept of class D, class S as well as MOSFET power amplifiers.